The War for Mansoul by John Bunyan, as told by Ethel Barrett. Copyright 1998, Christian Light Publications Incorporated. Harrisonburg, Virginia. A Summons to Mansoul. Lord Mayor Understanding had reached the peak of his morning walk. He always called it the peak, for it was the highest point in the town of Mansoul, the rolling hills on the edge of town, a vantage point from which he could survey all of it. The dwellings nestled in the hills, the meadows awash with flowers, the market square below in the distance, the streets and thoroughfares, the castle in the center, the walls. It all lay like a picture before his eyes. It had been built by the great King Shaddai for his delight and pleasure. He had made it the mirror and glory of all that he was, beyond anything else that he had made in universe. It was a beautiful place, peaceful and good and strong. There was no other place under the heavens so wonderful as Mansoul. And as Shaddai had made it beautiful, so he had also made it powerful. Indeed, the town of Mansoul had dominion over all the country around it. All were commanded to do homage to it. The town itself had positive commission and power from King Shaddai to demand service of all and to subdue any that denied it. It was a glorious day, like all the other days before, and like all the days it had promised to be. Lord Understanding paused there, as he always did, and looked and marveled that each day could be so filled with endless new things, with such a variety of joys. There was no lack, no sorrow, no pain, no rascals, no sin. There was enough of everything, and everything was good. And there was only one law, to love King Shaddai and to do his will. And his will was perfect and a delight to do. Lord Mayor Understanding started back toward the castle to begin his day's work. He felt the same thrill he felt every morning, the thrill of descending into this picture of perfect beauty and becoming a living part of it. Then the shrill sound of a trumpet shattered the air and shattered his thoughts. He stopped and listened. The air was clear and silent for a moment. Then the trumpet sounded again, and this time the notes hung in the air, demanding, beguiling, beckoning. A summons? It sounded like a summons. He could not be sure, but of this he was sure. It was strange and exotic, unlike anything he had ever heard before. He forgot his leisurely morning walk and pummeled through the tangled foliage until he was on the streets again. Then he ran at breakneck speed down into the center of town, then across it, toward the city walls. Back in the castle, Mr. Conscious was sitting at his desk, facing a large expanse of windows that commanded a magnificent view of the castle gardens, the castle walls, and much of the town beyond. He never tired of this view. He never tired of the castle. It was reared up in the very middle of the town, a most stately palace. For strength it might be called a castle, for pleasantness a paradise, for largeness a place so copious as to seem to contain, in miniature, the very universe itself. This was the heart, the core, the innermost being of Mansoul. This was the place King Shaddai intended for himself alone, partly because of his own delights, and partly because he did not want the tyranny of strangers upon the town. And this was the secret place. Shaddai came here in the cool of the day to enjoy Mansoul. Here he would visit with both the gentry and the townspeople, and their fellowship was sweet beyond words to tell. Things were beginning to stir. Mr. Conscience could hear Captain Resistance in the next room, giving orders to his staff. The market square was beginning to fill up with the people of Mansoul. The shops were opening and folk were coming out of their houses. Mr. Conscience could see the great seal of Shaddai in the distance, commanding the square. He thought of the other great seal of Shaddai on the outside of the castle gates, and of Shaddai's banners unfurled on the topmost towers of the castle, whipping and snapping in the morning breeze. He never tired of the sight. He always stopped and gazed at it in love and gratitude before he started his morning walk. He shifted the papers on his desk and then got up and stretched. Perhaps Captain Resistance might join him in his walk this morning. They had much to talk about. Resistance held a position of great responsibility, but he was a strong man and capable, always ready to stand by his convictions. It was always good to talk to him. Conscience was halfway to the door when he heard it. The sound of a trumpet. It filled the air and seemed to stay there, demanding, commanding. A summons? From whom? And why? Mr. Conscience froze in his tracks. There it was again. It was a summons. He tore out the door, down the corridor, down the stairs, through the spacious halls and foyer downstairs, out the castle door. He was halfway down the castle steps when he thought of Captain Resistance. He stopped, started back, just as Resistance bolted out the castle door. Without a word they ran to the castle gates and out into the street. The trumpet was sounding again. They made for the city wall. Lord Willoughby-Will was making his morning rounds. Every morning he walked all the way around the walls of Mansoul, inspecting them and delighting in their beauty. They were built for strength, too. So fast and firm were they structured that had it not been for the townsmen themselves, they could not have been shaken or broken forever. For here lay the excellent wisdom of Shaddai, that the walls could never be breached nor harmed by the mightiest adversary or potentate unless the townsmen gave consent. Willoughby-Will had 5 gates to inspect: ear gate, eye gate, mouth gate, nose gate, and field gate. These were also impregnable. They could never be opened nor forced unless the Mansoulians gave consent. Mansoul could never perish, except from within. As he walked along, he thought of his relationship with Shaddai. It was a very wonderful and mysterious thing. Shaddai loved him, that he knew. How great that love was he could not fathom. The wonder of it was that Shaddai loved him. The mystery of it was that Shaddai did not command his love in return, but left him free, left him with the awesome power of choice. Was that, then, the mystery of love, to be chosen, to have the power to choose? He exulted in the thought. At this moment he did not know that the power of choice made love both the most powerful and the most fragile of all relationships. Nor did he know that while he was exulting over its greatest strength, he was in danger of stumbling over its greatest weakness. The shattering sound of the trumpet almost set him sprawling. He staggered and would have fallen had he not flailed out at the wall for support. It blasted through him and sent his head spinning. He leaned against the wall, shaken. There it was again, deafening, commanding. A summons? Eargate was just ahead. He ran toward it, and in his confusion he thought he saw a figure climbing up the steps to the wall. Almost in the same moment he realized that the figure was real. It was Lord Innocency. His head cleared. It was a summons, all right. He headed for the steps and began to climb them, and halfway up he turned and looked over the streets of Mansoul. The people had stopped in their tracks, listening. Then he saw in the distance Mr. Conscience and Captain Resistance running toward the gate. He stopped, decided to wait for them. Lord Mayor Understanding was somewhere out for his morning walk. He must have heard the summons too. They would all wait for him, thought Willoughby-Will. It would be proper for them to all appear together. He called out to Lord Innocency to wait. Then he sat down on the steps. He wished that it were the cool of the day and that Shaddai was here. But the wish was only for a moment. He was free to make his own choices.